Jack Thompson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he tightened the last bolt on the space station's external panel. Being a former Marine didn't make the work any easier, but it had taught him to be thorough. The endless black of space stretched out before him, and Earth hung like a blue marble below. It was just another normal day of maintenance work on International Space Station Beta. At least it was normal until the massive ship appeared. It simply winked into existence, like someone had flipped a switch. The vessel was easily the size of 3 aircraft carriers stacked together, its silver hull gleaming in the sunlight. Jack's wrench floated away from his slack fingers as he stared at the impossible sight. "Control, are you seeing this?" he asked into his radio. "Affirmative, Jack. Get back inside. Now." He didn't argue. 15 years in the Marines had taught him when to move fast. Jack made it to the airlock in record time, his heart pounding against his ribs. Inside the station, chaos had already taken hold. Screens showed the alien ship from multiple angles, and mission control was screaming through the communication system. But before anyone could make sense of what was happening, every screen in the station flickered and showed the same image. A creature that looked like a cross between a deer and a praying mantis. "Greetings, Earth Station," the creature said in perfect English. "I am First Speaker Vellner of the Galactic Council. We come in peace." The next few hours were a blur of activity. More ships appeared, smaller but just as impressive. The world's governments scrambled to respond, but in the end, they chose the space station as the meeting point. Why? Because it was already in space, and because Jack had been the first human the aliens had seen. That's how Jack Thompson, former Marine and space station engineer, found himself sitting across from First Speaker Vellner and his diplomatic team 12 hours later. The aliens had created some kind of extension to the space station, a bubble of energy that turned into solid matter. They called it simple technology. Jack called it magic. "Your world," Vellner said, his mandibles clicking softly, "is quite remarkable. We classify it as a Class 12 death world." "A what now?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The room was filled with important people, generals, politicians, scientists, but the aliens kept addressing him. "A planet so hostile that it should not support intelligent life," another alien explained. This one looked more like a blue octopus floating in a clear tank. The gravity, the atmospheric pressure, the temperature swings, the natural disasters, the predators. By our standards, Earth is a nightmare. Jack scratched his head. "Seems pretty nice to me." The aliens exchanged looks that Jack could somehow tell were worried, even on their inhuman faces. "To demonstrate," Vellner said, pulling out a device that projected a hologram. "This is a Category 3 predator from our database." The image showed something like a tiger, but with 6 legs. On most worlds, this would be an apex predator. "Looks like it'd make good hunting," Jack said without thinking. The room went silent. The alien diplomats pulled back slightly. One of them actually changed color, turning from green to pale white. You hunt? For sport?" Vellner's voice had a slight tremor. "Well, yeah, lots of people do. It's regulated now, of course. Need licenses and such." Jack shrugged. He noticed the human diplomats making frantic, stop-talking gestures, but it was too late. The aliens' reaction was immediate. Their calm demeanor cracked. Vellner's assistant dropped a datapad. The octopus-like alien's tank bubbled frantically. Then Jack made it worse. He reached for his coffee mug. What is that dark liquid you're consuming?" Vellner asked, his voice now definitely shaking. "Coffee. Want some?" When they analyzed the coffee and found out humans regularly consumed stimulants for pleasure, the first diplomatic meeting between humanity and the Galactic Council ended in what could only be called a controlled panic. The aliens retreated to their ships, leaving behind a communication device and a lot of confused humans. As Jack watched the alien ships move away from Earth, he couldn't help but smile. Something told him this was just the beginning of a very interesting time for humanity. The good thing about being underestimated was that you could only surprise people in good ways. Usually, 3 days after the first contact, Emily Parker stood before the Galactic Council's classification committee. The room was massive, with seats rising up in circles like a giant bowl. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled these seats, some floating, others sitting, and a few hanging from special perches. Emily hadn't planned to be here. She was just a xenobiologist who happened to be studying extreme environments on Earth. But when the Council demanded proof of humanity's abilities, she became humanity's best chance to explain why Earth wasn't as deadly as they thought. "You claim humans can survive in multiple environments?" asked Councillor Dren, who looked like a tall, thin crystal with floating lights inside. "Without special equipment?" Emily nodded and pulled up her presentation. "Yes. Let me show you." The screens lit up with images of human activities: mountain climbers scaling peaks in the snow, deep sea divers exploring ocean trenches, desert runners crossing burning sands, cave explorers squeezing through tight spaces underground. "Impossible," muttered one of the council members. "Those environments would kill any rational species." Emily smiled. "We don't just survive there. Some of us do these things for fun." The room erupted in nervous chatter. Emily waited for them to quiet down before continuing. She pulled out her water bottle and took a drink. "What is that clear liquid?" asked a floating blob of green gas inside a containment suit. "Water." More shocked whispers. "You consume dihydrogen monoxide in its pure form." The crystal counselor's lights flickered rapidly. "That's a universal solvent. It can dissolve more substances than any other liquid. We're made of it," Emily said. "About 60% of our bodies is water." One of the smaller aliens actually fainted. But the real chaos started when Emily moved to her next point. She pulled up images of human cities in different climates. "Here we are living in temperatures from -40 to +40 degrees Celsius." She pointed to pictures of cities in Siberia and the Sahara. "We build homes everywhere." "That's a temperature range of 80 degrees, shouted someone from the back. "No species can adapt to such extremes." Emily was ready for this. She took out a small device the council had given her to measure environmental conditions. "Let me demonstrate something. This device shows that this room is kept at what you call standard galactic comfort level. Watch what happens when I do this." She reached down and picked up her cup of coffee, which she had brought in a thermal container. The council members leaned forward, probably expecting another shocking revelation about human drink choices. Instead, Emily poured a little coffee on the device. "The temperature of this liquid is nearly 70 degrees Celsius," she said calmly. "We drink it this hot. For pleasure." The council chamber went completely silent. "And this," she pulled out another container from her bag, "is ice cream. Frozen cream and sugar at about -10 degrees Celsius. Also for pleasure." One of the council members, something that looked like a very dignified purple octopus, raised a tentacle. "Let me understand this correctly. Your species intentionally consumes things at temperatures that would kill most species, for enjoyment." "Yes," Emily said. "We also exercise until it hurts, climb mountains because they're there, and dive into cold water for fun. We call it refreshing." The classification committee took a recess after that. Emily could hear them arguing from behind the chamber doors. Words like "impossible" and "madness" echoed through the halls. When they returned, their spokesperson, the crystal being, seemed to have lost some of its shine. "We will need to create a new classification for Earth, and we would appreciate it if humans would consider serving on our survival advisory board." Emily smiled. She hadn't even gotten to the part about how humans could eat almost anything, heal from broken bones, or survive losing large amounts of blood. She decided to save those revelations for another day. After all, it was best not to shock their new alien friends too much at once. Robert Mills stood at the window of his new spaceship, watching the stars streak by. 6 months ago, He had been a private security contractor on Earth. Now he was the captain of an interstellar protection team. Life had definitely taken an interesting turn. Captain Mills called his alien communications officer, Pete, whose real name was unpronounceable by humans. "We have an emergency call from Colony 7. Robert turned away from the window. "Put it through." The screen lit up showing a terrified alien face. The colony leader's feathers were all puffed out, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Captain Mills, raiders are attacking our outer farms. Our defenders can't hold them off." "We're 30 minutes out," Robert said calmly. "Tell your people to hide in the safe rooms we built. We'll handle this." After the call ended, Robert pressed the ship's intercom button. "Attention team, we've got work to do. Suit up." His team of 12, a mix of former military and security professionals from Earth, was ready in 10 minutes. They had done this drill many times now. The aliens might have amazing technology, but when it came to fighting, humans had thousands of years of practice. Their ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Colony 7. The farming planet looked peaceful from space, all purple fields and green oceans. But Robert could see the raiders' ships in orbit, 3 of them, not very big. "Amateur hour," he muttered. These raiders were used to attacking helpless farming colonies. They had no idea what they were about to face. Robert's team landed their ship quietly, using the stealth technology the Council had given them. The raiders hadn't even posted guards. They were too busy loading stolen goods into their vehicles. "Remember," Robert said to his team over the radio, "non-lethal if possible. The Council gets squeamish about deaths." He checked his stun rifle, a beautiful piece of technology that could knock out any known species without causing harm. The raiders never knew what hit them. Robert's team moved like ghosts through the colony streets, taking down enemies one by one. The aliens called this kind of fighting impossible, moving quietly in armor, staying hidden, striking from multiple directions at once. To Robert's team, it was just Thursday. 20 minutes later, it was over. 30 raiders were tied up and unconscious. Their ships were secured, and not a single colonist had been harmed. The colony leader came out of hiding, his feathers still puffed up. That was amazing. Our own defense forces would have taken hours and probably lost half the colony. Robert shrugged. "Just doing our job." But news of the incident spread fast. By the next day, Robert's company had 10 new contract offers. It seemed every peaceful species in this sector wanted human protection. The Galactic Council was not happy about this. "You can't just let humans run around playing soldier," one council member argued in an emergency session. "They're too dangerous, too unpredictable. Would you prefer we let the raiders continue attacking colonies?" Another member asked. "The human mercenaries have stopped more attacks in 6 months than our peacekeeping forces did in 3 years. But they fight like they don't fight fair," the first member sputtered. Robert watched the council debate on his ship's screen and smiled. He tried to explain to them that there was no such thing as fighting fair in his book. You fought to win, to protect people, and you used every advantage you had. The aliens just couldn't understand that humans had spent their entire history learning to fight smarter, not harder. Why stand in line and shoot at each other when you could sneak around and end the fight before it began? "Captain," Pete called out, "we have another distress call. Mining colony this time." Robert nodded. Let the council debate all they wanted. He had a job to do. "Tell them help is on the way." Dr. Lauren Anderson stared at her computer screen, double-checking her results for the 10th time. The numbers didn't lie. She had done it. Her lab on the International Science Station was small by Earth standards, but it was filled with the most advanced equipment the Galactic Council could provide. Screens showed DNA patterns from 20 different alien species, all spinning slowly as her computer analyzed them. "Computer," she said, "run the simulation again." The alien computer hummed softly. On the main screen, a simulation showed cells changing, adapting, becoming stronger. It was beautiful to watch. "Dr. Anderson," called a voice from the doorway. "The council representatives are here." Lauren looked up to see 3 aliens entering her lab. One was tall and plant-like, with leaves instead of hair. Another looked like a silver cloud in a containment suit. The third was more insect-like, with 4 arms and large eyes. "Welcome," Lauren said, standing up. "I have good news. You said you've made a breakthrough." The plant-like alien asked. Lauren nodded. "We've all been thinking about this wrong. The Council has spent centuries trying to make environments safer for different species, but what if we could make the species themselves more adaptable?" She pulled up her research on the main screen. "I study how humans adapt to different environments. We can live almost anywhere because our bodies are good at changing. I found a way to give this ability to other species." The alien stared at her data. "Impossible," the cloud-like being whispered. "Not impossible," Lauren said. "Watch this." She walked to a small tank in the corner of her lab. Inside was a plant from a Class 3 world, a species that could only survive in very specific conditions. Lauren pressed a button, and the environment in the tank began to change. The temperature dropped. The humidity shifted. The light levels changed. According to everything the Council knew, the plant should have died instantly. Instead, it adapted. Its leaves changed color. Its stem grew thicker. It survived. The insect-like alien stepped closer to the tank. "This goes against everything we know about biology." Lauren smiled. "No, it goes against everything you thought you knew. Life wants to survive. Sometimes it just needs a little help figuring out how." She pulled up more data. "I call it the Lauren Protocol. It's a way to activate dormant genes that most species already have. These genes control adaptation, but they're usually switched off. My process turns them on safely." The plant-like alien's leaves were trembling. "Do you understand what this means?" "I do," Lauren said. "Species that could never leave their homeworlds can now explore the galaxy. Colonies can be built in places that were too harsh before. Your people won't have to fear environmental changes anymore." The Council members looked at each other. Lauren could tell they were communicating silently through their neural links. Finally, the cloud-like being spoke. "This research is too dangerous. It would upset the entire balance of power in the galaxy. We must classify it as restricted technology." Lauren had expected this. She picked up a data pad and handed it to them. "You're too late. I already shared the basic process with 50 research stations across the galaxy. They're all running their own tests now." "You what?" All 3 aliens spoke at once. "Knowledge wants to be free," Lauren said. "Just like life wants to survive. You can't stop either one." The Council members left her lab in a panic, already calling for emergency meetings. Lauren turned back to her work. She knew there would be trouble, but she also knew she was right. The galaxy was about to change, and this time, humanity wasn't just showing the way. They were helping others follow it. She looked at her screen, where another simulation was running. This one showed a Class 1 species adapting to live on a Class 8 world. It was working perfectly. "Time to evolve," she whispered to herself, and smiled. Captain Michael Hayes watched the star map with focused eyes as red dots appeared across the trade routes. Each dot was another pirate attack. The pirates had gotten bold in the past month, hitting dozens of merchant ships. "Status report," he called out to his crew. His bridge crew was a mix of humans and aliens. They worked together on the HS Thunder, the first human-designed warship built with Galactic Council technology. It wasn't the biggest ship in space, but Michael knew size wasn't everything. "Another merchant ship just sent a distress call," said Lisa, his human communications officer. "The Council Defense Fleet is 10 hours away." Michael nodded. "And how far are we?" 20 minutes at full speed. "Then let's crash their party." Michael pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All hands, battle stations." The Thunder jumped through space, its engines humming with power. When they arrived, They found 3 pirate ships surrounding a civilian transport. The transport's hull was damaged, but it was still in one piece. "Pirates haven't spotted us yet," said Kevin from the tactical station. "Our stealth systems are working perfectly." Michael smiled. The council ships always announced themselves with bright lights and warning messages. They thought it was proper warfare. Humans knew better. "Launch our drones," Michael ordered. Tiny ships shot out from the thunder, each no bigger than a car. The pirates' sensors couldn't detect them. These drones were another human innovation. Small, fast, and very, very clever. "Drones in position," Kevin reported. "Send our message," Michael said. Lisa opened a channel. "Attention pirate vessels. This is Captain Hayes of the HSS Thunder. Release the merchant ship and surrender, or we will take action." The pirates responded by laughing. Their leader appeared on the screen, a tall alien with scales and too many teeth. "1 ship against 3. Leave now, human, while you still can." Michael shook his head. "Wrong answer. Kevin, light them up." The drones activated all at once. Each one carried a small but powerful electromagnetic pulse device. The pulses hit the pirate ships, shutting down their weapons and shields. What did you do?" The pirate leader's voice was panicked now. "We could have destroyed your ships," Michael said calmly. "Instead, we just turned off your toys. Now about that surrender." The pirates tried to run, but without power to their main systems, they were sitting ducks. The Thunder moved in, using its tractor beams to capture all 3 ships at once. "Send in the boarding teams," Michael ordered. Human Marines, wearing the latest in Council Tech battle armor, breached the pirate ships. The fights were short. Most pirates surrendered as soon as they saw the humans coming. They had heard stories about human combat skills. An hour later, Michael sent his report to the Council. 3 pirate ships captured, 1 merchant ship saved, no deaths on either side. The Council representatives were shocked. "How did you defeat 3 ships with 1? They asked. "Simple," Michael explained. "We used our heads instead of just our guns. Pirates expect direct fights. We don't play by their rules." The council talked among themselves. Finally, one of them spoke up. "Captain Hayes, we want you to train our defense forces. Show them how humans fight." Michael thought about it. Teaching council forces human tactics would change everything. The pirates wouldn't know what hit them. "I'll do it," he said. "But I warn you, things will never be the same." "Perhaps," the council member replied. "That's exactly what we need." On the bridge of the Thunder, Michael looked at his crew. Humans and aliens working together, learning from each other. This was the future. Not just humans showing their strength, but teaching others to be strong too. "Set course for council headquarters," he ordered. "We have some lessons to teach." Thomas Wright stood in front of his unusual class. 30 aliens from 10 different species looked back at him. Some floated, others sat, and a few hung from special perches. All of them were here to learn human ways of thinking. "Today," Thomas said, pointing to the screen behind him, "we're going to talk about something simple, how to think outside the box." One of his students, a crystal-based life form, glowed in confusion. "But Instructor Wright, why would we think about the outside of a box?" Thomas smiled. He was used to these questions by now. It's a human saying. It means thinking in new ways, finding solutions that aren't obvious. The training center had been his idea. After the success of human mercenaries and Captain Hayes' tactics against the pirates, more and more species wanted to learn from humans. The council had fought against it at first, but they couldn't stop the demand. "Let me show you an example," Thomas said. He brought up an image of a space station. "This is Colony Station 5. It was attacked by raiders last week. The station's defenders did everything by the council's rulebook. What happened? The raiders took control of the main dock," answered a blue-skinned alien in the front row. "They followed the standard attack pattern." "Exactly," Thomas nodded. Now let's look at how human defenders stopped the same raiders at Colony Station 6 yesterday. The screen showed security footage. The raiders had expected the defenders to guard the main entrances. Instead, the human-trained security team had hidden in maintenance tunnels. They trapped the raiders between security doors and captured them all in minutes. "But that's not fair," protested one of the students. "The defenders didn't follow proper combat protocols." "There's no such thing as proper combat protocols when lives are at stake," Thomas explained. "You use what works. You adapt. You survive." His words hit home. The students had all seen how humans had changed things in just a few months. Human-trained security teams were stopping pirates. Human-designed weapons were protecting trade routes. Human thinking was spreading across the galaxy. The Council was not happy about any of this. As if on cue, Thomas's computer beeped. A message from the Council appeared. "CA's training immediately. New regulations, he Indiang." Thomas looked at his students. They were eager to learn, hungry for knowledge that could help protect their people. He deleted the message. "Let's continue," he said. "Today's practical exercise: how to turn a cleaning robot into a security system." The Council's new regulations came the next day. They tried to ban human training programs. They called human tactics too aggressive and culturally disruptive. It didn't work. Species across the galaxy had seen what humans could teach them. More importantly, they had seen how human adaptability could help them survive. The Council's authority was breaking down. "They don't understand," Thomas told his wife on a video call that night. "We're not teaching them to be violent. We're teaching them to be clever, to be strong, to believe in themselves." "The Council's worst nightmare," his wife said with a smile. "No," Thomas corrected her. "Their worst nightmare is that it's working. Every species we teach becomes more independent, more capable. They stop relying on the Council for protection." He looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, his former students were using their new skills to protect their homes and families. They were teaching others what they had learned. The change couldn't be stopped now. The next morning, Thomas got another message. This one was different. "Independent Worlds Alliance forming. Human instructors needed." Thomas smiled and began packing his teaching materials. The galaxy was changing, one lesson at a time. Amanda Foster walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. Behind her walked representatives from 20 different species, all of them from worlds the Council had labeled minor or developing. "Are you sure about this?" asked Trill, a small alien who looked like a glowing jellyfish. His species had once been considered too fragile to leave their homeworld. "Absolutely," Amanda said. She adjusted her diplomatic uniform and smiled. "Remember what we practiced. Stand tall. Speak clearly. Show them what you've become." The Council chamber doors opened. Inside, the most powerful species in the galaxy sat in their elevated seats, looking down at everyone else. They had always done things this way. Until now. Amanda stepped up to the speaking platform. As Earth's new diplomatic representative, she had called this meeting. The Council members didn't know what was coming. "Honorable Council," she began, "I bring you a message from the developing worlds. The minor species may petition the Council through proper channels." One of the senior members interrupted. "They do not speak here." Amanda's smile didn't waver. "Actually, they do. Today, they speak for themselves." She stepped aside, and Trill floated forward. Thanks to Dr. Lauren Anderson's adaptation protocols, his species could now survive in almost any environment. He glowed with confidence. "My people were once trapped on our world," Trill said clearly. "You told us we were too weak to survive anywhere else, but humans showed us differently. Today, we run our own trading fleet. We explore the stars. We are not weak." One by one, the other representatives stepped forward. Each had a story to tell. A species that had been told they were too primitive to understand advanced technology now built their own ships, using human training methods. A race that had been dependent on Council protection now defended themselves, thanks to Captain Hayes's tactical teachings. A civilization that had been labeled mentally unsuitable for space travel now had colonies on 3 worlds, using Thomas Wright's adaptation training. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. The senior members couldn't believe what they were hearing. Their perfect system was falling apart. "This is unacceptable," shouted one council member. "These species aren't ready for such independence." "Ready?" Amanda stepped forward again. "They've always been ready. You just never gave them the chance to prove it." She pulled out a data pad and projected its contents onto the main screen. "I have here declarations from 50 worlds. They're forming a new alliance. One where all species are equal. One where strength isn't measured by where you came from, but by what you can become." The council's leader, a being made of pure energy, spoke for the first time. "You cannot do this. The galaxy needs order, structure, control." "No," Amanda said firmly. "The galaxy needs freedom, growth, change." She looked around the chamber. "And it's already happening. Half of your own member worlds have already signed our charter." The chamber erupted again, but this time with questions and demands. Some council members were already calling their home worlds. Others were asking to see the new charter. Amanda watched it all with satisfaction. This was why humans had succeeded where others had failed. They didn't just show strength, they showed others how to be strong. "The old council is over," she announced. "Welcome to the new galaxy." As she left the chamber with her allies, Amanda could hear the sound of change sweeping through the building. The revolution wasn't fought with weapons, but with ideas. And ideas, once spread, could never be stopped. "What happens now?" Trill asked as they walked out. Amanda looked at the stars through the building's crystal dome. Now we build something better. Together." Jack Thompson stood at the window of the new Galactic Assembly building, watching ships come and go. It was hard to believe that just 1 year had passed since he'd first tightened that bolt on the space station and seen the Council's first contact ship. "Quite a view, isn't it?" said a familiar voice. Jack turned to see First Speaker Vellner walking toward him. The alien didn't look so intimidating anymore. In fact, they had become friends over the past year. "Remember when you thought Earth was too dangerous to join galactic society?" Jack asked with a smile. Vellner's mandibles clicked in what Jack now knew was laughter. "Remember when you offered me coffee? I still haven't tried it." "Maybe today's the day," Jack said, holding up his mug. They both looked out at the space traffic. Ships of all sizes and shapes moved through the lanes. Many of them used designs that would have been impossible under the old Council rules. But humans had taught the galaxy that impossible just meant not tried yet. "The final charter meeting starts in 10 minutes, Vellner said. "Are you ready?" Jack nodded. As Earth's representative on the charter writing committee, he had a big job ahead. The old Council was gone, replaced by the new Galactic Alliance. Every species would have a voice now, from the oldest spacefaring races to the newest colonies. They walked into the great meeting hall together. The room was packed with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Dr. Lauren Anderson sat with a group of scientists, discussing new adaptation protocols. Captain Michael Hayes chatted with alien military leaders about joint defense plans. Thomas Wright showed some students how to think creatively about space station design. Amanda Foster waved them over to the main table. "Just in time," she said. "We're ready to begin." Jack took his seat and looked at the document on his screen. The new Galactic Charter was simple but powerful. Every species had the right to grow, to learn, to become stronger. No more artificial limits. No more holding others back. 1 year ago, Jack said as the meeting began, humanity joined the galactic community. We were called dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to the established order. He paused, looking around the room. But we weren't the threat. Fear was the threat. Fear of change, fear of difference, fear of growth. Today, he continued, we're building something new. Not just humans, but all of us together. We're creating a galaxy where being different isn't dangerous, it's valuable. Where being strong doesn't mean keeping others weak. Where chaos isn't something to fear, but a chance to adapt and grow. The room was silent, listening. Even the species that once needed translators could understand him now, thanks to the Lauren protocol helping them adapt to understand human speech. The old council called us their worst nightmare, Jack said. But sometimes nightmares are just dreams that challenge us to be better. Today, we wake up to a new galaxy. One by one, the representatives came forward to sign the charter. Former council races signed alongside ones they had once called minor. Species that had once been enemies now work together, sharing human ideas about cooperation and growth. As Jack watched, he remembered something his old Marine commander used to say. The strongest warrior isn't the one who fights alone, but the one who teaches others to be strong. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had done something much more powerful. They had inspired it. So, Vellner said after the last signature was recorded, about that coffee. Jack laughed and handed him a cup. Welcome to the new age, friend. It's going to be quite a ride. Outside the window, the stars seemed to shine brighter than before. The galaxy wasn't the council's nightmare anymore. It was everyone's dream, coming true one world at a time.